War broke out in September of 1939. I was 16 years old. So, wonder what's going to happen to people of my age at that time. The old timers from the First World War are saying that this war wouldn't last long, that Germans would never get beyond the Maginot Line, and it would be over at the end of a couple of years, a year anyway. Well, that would put me out, so. But it went on, and we found that Germany was much more prepared than they had anticipated. And by the time I hit 18, or coming up to 18, realized I better get doing something toward whatever service I was going to go into, because I didn't want to be conscripted. We had letters at home from coming back from the First World War, and how it was like with the Army, and I didn't want anything to do with that, and trenches and rats. And so I decided I'd join the Navy. And I wanted to be a signaller, because I knew Morse code pretty well, and signaling in general. But when I went up to join, I was turned down because I was color blind or color deficient, whatever you might want to call it. Some of my buddies said, "Go for something else." I said, "What?" "Cook or something." No, I don't want to be a cook. Well, and what about stoker? What's that? Well, it's engineering, engine room branch. I'll go for that. So I did. And it turned out the better for me anyway. I was very well. And then I joined up here in Windsor at where old Toledo Scales used to be on Howard Avenue. And we did our training there. They had us in boarding homes. And we just appeared down there like you were going to work in the morning, and learned a lot about marching and a few things along that line. And then I got shipped out to Halifax, and was back to school. And they come along, and they picked some out of this class, some out of that class, some in a bunch come across from the West Coast, and they made a group of 75 of us, sent us over to the Royal Navy for more training. And the 25 that I ended up over in England with, we went to Chatham. And from Chatham Barracks, sent out to join a ship. And we went to the northern part of Scotland and missed it. Then I had to go all the way across country into Wales, where I eventually met the ship. And out of that 25, there were 7 of us Canadians. I was the only Easterner. All the rest were Westerners. It was a mine-laying cruiser, one of the fastest ships in the Royal Navy, one of the fastest ships in the world at that time. I joined it around 3:30 in the afternoon, and by sundown we were at sea. There was 3 capital German ships in Brest Harbor. And we were trying to block them in, and so they couldn't get out to interfere with the convoys. And but they really were Prince Eugen, Scharnhorst, and Najnu. So we were going over one night, laying 180 mines. Another ship was going over the next night, laying 180 mines. The Air Force was bombing it at night. But the 3 ships sailed out unscathed, so that was the end of that operation. And they did get out, but they got them penned in up at Narvik. Well, then they sent us up to the northern part of Scotland for some more training, and especially like combined operation training. Then they come back and they loaded us up with warm gear clothing. Well, this is anticipation. We thought we're going on the Mermout's run. But knowing the service, they do the opposite. And went to Plymouth, and each watch was given 3 days leave, and come back, and the skipper pulled out into the harbor and said, we're heading for the Far East. 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be in Durban, South Africa. So we left that night. First stop was Gibraltar, and that was nice because it was semi-tropical, and we were getting nice fruit heading south for a while, coming over from Tangier. And from Gibraltar, we went to Freetown. We had some Air Force personnel taking passage. We dropped them off on the Gold Coast. We never stopped there, just to drop them off. Then on to Simonstown, South Africa. From Simonstown to Durban, took on extra ammunition and so forth. Went to Madagascar. But it was French, and at that time there was two different French. There was the Vichy French that had fallen in with the enemy, and there was the French who stayed patriotic to their own country. Well, the French on Madagascar was refueling enemy ships. So we with the Devonshire County class cruiser and the Illustrious bombarded the Agusaraz. Then from there we went by ourselves down to Taranatov, the other end, met up with South Africa Regiment, and there were some English regiments in with it too, and they were coming up. They got dropped off, fired enough down, and then we were to coordinate this for about 2 o'clock in the morning. The skipper backed the ship into the harbor, and just opened up with everything we had on it. And there wasn't many buildings that looked habitable after. In the morning we get up. Then there was several people, I wasn't involved in it, but to go and confiscate any boats. Well, all the boats were old fishing boats that were antiques, you might say. They were fired by driftwood and one thing and another, and the boilers were caked with the clay, and it was something to laugh about. We pulled out of there, back to Agusaraz, and got things wrapped up, and then we went to our base out there, Mombasa in Kenya. And from Mombasa, then we started the operation running a patrol from the Seychelles Islands up to Colombo, Ceylon. And we spent some time in Colombo, Ceylon, then we're up to Bombay, and had to go in there for boiler cleaning, one thing and another. And then there's some operations going on for the Japs. Had been on their way to Ceylon, but through a Canadian air pilot, mostly Canadian crew, spotted it, and they got shot down. And when the Japanese know they're not going to get a sneak attack in, they backed out, so they turned around and went the other way. The Japanese held the island of Andaman Island at the time, so we were doing some operations up there, and then we supposed to get away before daylight, and we were a little tardy one time, and we got bagged up pretty bad, so we had to go into Visakhapatnam in India to get patched up, and somebody got the bright idea that they could camouflage the ship to look like a floating island or an island or something. So we down to Trincomalee, place in Ceylon, if you ever looked that up, took our gear there and went to the Maldive Islands, but south of Ceylon, and we anchored off of an uninhabited island. Instead of the piping action stations, that was hands to camouflage stations. So you'd run the camouflage station, there would nets go over this and that, and a palm tree up at the back. And so after a couple of weeks of this practice, but it was a nice love there. You go make up a lunch and you take offshore if you wanted a day off. And beach was beautiful. You go in the water and stand up about your chin and see your toes. And it was a wonderful part of life. And I only flew out with the Catalina. They over it and then landed the Catalina. And the pilot come aboard and I asked him, what would he think of that? What did he think of it? He said, I wouldn't think twice of dropping a bomb on it. So that was the end of that operation. And back to Trinquelet and drop off the gear. And we did a few more operations there. Then running back to our base in Mombasa periodically, get mail and one thing and another, and operations changed. They had not been able to get supplies, one thing another, through to Malta, island of Malta, from the west. They started out with a convoy, a good-sized convoy, and lose an awful lot of it. It was called Bomb Alley at that time because in North Africa was controlled by the enemy, and you had Italy on one side, North Africa on the other. So you had the air cover was pretty good covered by them, and the submarines. And so they sent us up to Aden. We took on water and oil there, and up through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal, Port Said, and went into dry dock, and they scraped the bottom. From there to, this was Port Tufik, but the outside of Port Said. Went into Port Said and then took on a bunch of supplies and filled the mining flats, much as you get anywhere else on the ship. Then to Alexandria, but nobody got ashore at Alexandria, just went in there to take on some people for passage to Malta. So we went through and they stayed at action stations from the time that we left there. And the only thing we ever encountered, there was a plane, and reported to the captain. He said it was a spotter. It was an enemy spotter plane, and he said they're not bothering us. We won't bother them. So we sailed into Valletta without any problem and unloaded the material. From there, to running down, picking up mines and laying them off of Messina, Italy. This was getting the softening things up a little for trying to, for the break to get into Italy. Well, up through Sicily and then in Italy. So we do that at night and then get back, and sometimes back, and if some ships got through, there wasn't enough manpower. If you're off watch, you go over. So I got a couple of times unloading petrol cans to get ashore for the army. Well, this carried on till December the 1st. We left Algiers, the city of Algiers, in Algeria, at December the 1st, 1942, and the skipper said we'd be arriving at Gibraltar the next morning, but 10 after 4 in the afternoon, we got torpedoed. It was a little English lad, he was the same age as myself, and all the talk on the ship was we're going to be in England for Christmas. And he said, Robbie, you know, me coming from Canada, he said, you're going to come spend Christmas with my family. You know, that's, oh, they're wonderful. He was my relief, man. And when I went ashore in different ports and that, I come back, he had my hammock up for me. I did the same. We were in different watch. And very seldom we could ever go ashore together, you know. But he relieved me that time, so he was killed when we were torpedoed. So that Christmas never got up. I spent Christmas in Gibraltar at Christmas. And then I picked up the second ship, and the same kind of ship, and hauling lines off of Messina again. Well, then when that ship was going back, there were three of us Canadians left out of the 7, and we put in a request to leave ship, which is not very complimentary to the ship. They like, you know, they don't care for somebody asking to leave. So we had to go up in front of the skipper, and we were requestmen, and he asked why we wanted to leave the ship. And I was the first one on the line. I said that we were understood, we were sent over for a year's training with the Royal Navy, and our time is well up. And we know the ship's going back to the Mediterranean, and when will we ever get home? So he turned to the engineering officer and he asked him what he knew about it. He said it's virtually the same thing. He said, if the work was so, and how are they? All 3 are very good. Okay, he said, I'm giving 3 days leave to each watch. He said, before we go back. So pack your gear, go and leave wherever you go to go. Do you have any relatives over there? And the one fellow had relatives in Scotland, but the other fellow from Saskatoon and myself, we had nobody. And we said we thought we'd go down and visit. Trying to think of the name of the place in Wales. Anyway, a city in Wales. And he said, "Oh, that's very good. You just pack your gear, have everything ready, and when you come back, your papers will be ready here for you." Very good, thank you, sir. So we did that. We had to go to Chatham, where our base was over there. But in the meantime, the Canadian Navy had opened up while we'd been over, opened up a Canadian base in Greenock, Scotland, called Niobe. So we just did barrack routine going in, barrack routine going out, which was physical, and they always really checked your teeth and this and that. And so within about 3 days, we had physical and everything going in, and another one some coming out, and up to Niobe. So I never did like barracks. It was too much of a routine. And a ship, you were more freedom. So I started bugging them to get out of there, and said they didn't have a ship for me. Send me back to the RN then. Well, I can't do that. Well, and one day, Chief said, pick up a destroyer. He says, want to join it? I said, go head for Canada. He said, eventually. Put me down. So it wasn't quite finished yet. I got shipped out and went down to Newcastle, near Newcastle, a place called Jarrow. It was about 3 weeks before the ship was ready to, and a pretty well all new crew, people never sailed before, come all joining or coming aboard. Well, then you had to do a lot of ups, as we called it, training, try this, doing this and that. That went on. I suppose good 3 weeks. Then we went up to Londonderry, which was to be our base from there, running on Atlantic, North Atlantic convoy. And first operation from there was to Iceland, and skipper put it through an awful storm to get. It was a convoy had been on its way over, and they'd lost a lot of it, and we were to go out and meet it, and off of Iceland. The storm was so bad that they announced that no one was to relieve on deck. Even the lifelines, it wasn't safe. I get up in the morning, you could well tell it was bad because there was no lifeboats left, and the guardrails were pretty well all gone. It'd go over and fill up with water and wish back and forth, and so we eventually got through. We got through to Reykjavik and picked up a whaler, and they lashed that on to us, and it was unbelievable. After a storm like that, In the day, the water was just as smooth as could be. There was a bunch of Liberty ships that were escorting, and they were hollering over, "What the heck did you run into the German Navy?" And the galley was pretty well wrecked, and there's stuff out of it. So the best he could do to grab something to eat was go down and grab a can or something. Well, there was no labels left because the water washed above. And they opened up, you might have beans, you might have peaches, you never knew. But it was something. Got through to back to London area. Well, then had to go into a lot of repairs done. First trip coming over, there were swells. It wasn't bad, but skipper, he wanted well trained everything, and said take on oil. Well, take on oil. The oiler drops the hose and it's brought back by the forward capstan. It was reported to him the forward capstan was not working properly. Well, I'll do it anyway. So they put like 2x4s in and out to the capstan and wind it in by hand, by manpower, I should say. So they had this bunch of seamen on these things, winding it in to bring that hose back, and there was a pin supposed to be locked in, and the pin didn't. It froze apparently, and some of the guys, well, it was just a swell, as I say, and somebody lost their footing, and somebody else, and they come back and took part of the guy's head off. And it was a bollocks of a thing, and I said, when this ship gets to our Newfoundland or wherever it's going to be, I'm getting off. So the other guy, you think you will? I said, hey, number one, everybody that stayed back in the Canadian, with the Canadian, they got home once a year. I've never been home. Number one. Number two, I got to go to school. If that don't work, number three, I got to have an operation because I got hurt when we were competing. So I said, one more night, I'm getting up. Well, I put in for leave, and they give me leave from St. John, Newfoundland. It was very good amount of leave, but the 7 days traveling time. At that time, there was a train in Newfoundland. Newfoundland was not part of Canada at that time. I'm talking about 1943. I boarded the train on a Sunday night, traveled all Sunday night, and Monday, got in Monday night, evening into Port-au-Basque. Well, the boat wouldn't, a ferry boat wouldn't run at night anymore because the previous one was torpedoed, which a lot of people never ever heard of before, but all civilian people, or pretty well all civilian people, went down on that. Had to wait till morning, and took almost all day week to get home. And after my leave, I had to go back, all the way back to St. John. In there a couple of weeks, I said I was draft going to Halifax. I said, how am I traveling? I said, boy, ship, good. I went to Halifax, and I went to school. While I was in school, well, many things. First, I got a telegram, lost a brother, and so I was able to get some leave and come home. Well, when I went back, I had to fall into another different class. 1 month from that, I got another telegram. My mother passed away, which was quite expected anyway. And so asked me if I wanted to leave. I said, yeah. I came home again. Well, then I fall into another class. Went back to school. So I always said my grade was pretty low. They must have needed petty officer pretty bad because I picked up my petty officer into my last ship, my fourth ship. And I spent the last years on that ship until the end of the war. So I had joined on May the 6th of 1941 and was discharged on December the 11th, 1945. And I have a holder of yes, it's 7, 8 medals. So I have the Atlantic Star, North African Star with bar, the Burma Star in 1939 to 45, and Victory Battle. Then some years later, Malta. I was invited to Toronto. I have many photos of it here, and presented with the Malta George Cross by the ambassador from Malta, and or his representative anyway, and the Queen's Jubilee Medal.